Welcome back, friends. I was talking about the associative network memory model. I introduced that to you. Now, let's look at a, a figure which talks about the nodes as well as the connectivity and the other elements which we discussed. You see, look at this logo in between, BMW, and look at the elements all around it. And I will just reiterate the elements briefly. For example, connectivity, power, speed, performance. And remember, we talked about what comes to your mind in terms of image, recall, and those aspects. So, when we talk of BMW, what comes to you is, let us say, engine with excellence, power, speed, strength, and a context of dream machine and so on. So, let us look at this a little bit more systematically. Node size reflects the ease of recall. So, there are nodes around it, and you see the model developers, they talk about size with reference to the ease of recall, and the elements of connectivity, power, speed, performance, technology, the product being stylish with a sleek design, and definitely it has come up in Bond movies a lot basically, and somehow Bond movies, they themselves are brand in as far as for their viewers go. And then BMW appearing in Bond movie recently, Defender came up in Bond movie, basically one of my favorite vehicles. I have talked about it earlier as well, but BMW has been one of the favorites of James Bond. So and then that actually generates further recall. So, then the racing element, Germany also is associated with. See, Germany is positioned with with the perspective of technological strength. They have always been saying German technology, and then that gives us reassurance. Then precision, status, control, then enjoyment, fun to drive, customized features and so on, and an aspect of the ultimate driving machine. So, node size reflects the ease of recall, and the line thickness, you would realize that in this figure some lines are thicker as compared to few. So, line thickness represents the strength between the nodes, and then words in blue represent marketing strategies designed to build memory networks. For example, connectivity, technology, power, speed, performance, James Bond also a marketing element, and status and so on. So, that is how associative network memory model works, or that is how it is expressed, that these are the aspects which are connected within our, as far our memory system goes. People have tried to study our memory and associations within the memory with different kinds of methodologies and very interesting results as well. In consumer studies, in brand studies, it has been extensively utilized in due course of time. There are very interesting research papers which you would find on these aspects, and as I said last time also, science has supported marketing a lot. So, just read this specific chapter and understand this figure, or understand this perspective, and try to associate this with the preceding discussion on brand image and brand awareness, and the complete figure from where our journey actually started. Then there are types of brand associations, and I mentioned that when I was describing that figure. Brand associations may be either brand attributes or benefits. Brand attributes are those descriptive features that characterize a product or service, what a consumer thinks the product or service is or has, and what is involved with its purchase or consumption. Now, it is very interesting, just briefly let me reiterate this, what a consumer thinks that the product or service is all about. How the consumer actually picturizes the product or service, or has means what the product or service is offering. And one of my favorites is Dunkin' Donuts, for example. How do you actually picturize Dunkin' Donuts, the donut? And has means the kind of, let us say, taste, pleasure, satisfaction it gives you when you eat. And probably if you will think in terms of the level of and going ahead with as far as non-product related attributes, I will be coming back to that. But for example, you have consumed that donut with your young kid on her request. She said that we have to go to the Dunkin' Donuts shop and eat there. And that moment, that particular taste, the happiness in her eyes, all those things cumulatively would definitely be taking you towards a different kind of an imagery. I will be coming to this. So, you see, there are product related attributes, that is ingredients necessary or performing the preforming the product. Then there are non-product related attributes, that is price information, packaging or product appearance information, or user imagery, and I have described that in front of you just now. Then comes in brand benefits. Now, these are the personal value and meaning that consumers attach to the product or service attributes. And then you see the story goes further basically, and then you may take the same example in terms of as far as Dunkin' Donuts go. You may take the example of an insurance policy, for example. Now, that also has a very important aspect of brand benefits go. Benefits can further be distinguished into three categories. One, functional benefits, insurance policy for example. These functional benefits are intrinsic advantages of the product or service consumption and usually correspond to the product related attribute. For example, a money back policy or child's education policy, or again one of my favorites, Zindagi ke saath bhi, Zindagi ke baad bhi, Jeevan Anand. So, that is again. So, you see, these are functional benefits. Experiential benefits relate to what it feels like to use the product or service and also usually correspond to the product related attribute. For example, it actually was useful when the child got its benefit in terms of her education and so on. So, experiential benefits, and there are several other examples, and food and apparels and automotives, these can be favorite examples as well. Then comes in symbolic benefits. Now, symbolic benefits are more extrinsic advantages of product. Consumers may value the prestige, exclusivity, fashionability of a product because of how it relates to their self concept. And again, footwear is one of the very common examples and so on, but tourism destinations, and you see Malaysia, Truly Asia, Kerala, God's own country, and several other kinds of campaigns and tourist destinations, they have come up very nicely as far as several elements which we have discussed up till now. You may choose several other examples. You may choose examples of, let us say, a sugar brand also, Trust for example, Dham Pure for example. You may talk about a rice brand also, India Gate Basmati rice. Can we think of India Gate Basmati rice with this kind of a perspective, or the benefits which I have just coined in or elaborated in front of you? Can we think of salt, for example, catch salt in terms of these? Yes, we can. We can put up any product, any service here as far as this situation goes. Making a brand strong the Nike way, just do it. There are famous examples. You can use other examples. As I said, you can talk about a rice brand, you can talk about sugar, you can talk about salt, you can talk about Degi Mirch also. You can talk about several. You can talk about MDH masale, for example. You can talk of Everest masale, Everest chana masala, for example, with the same kind of a perspective which we are using here, and you would realize that they have also become stronger in due course of time. So, Nike products are made with cutting edge innovation and technology. Nike's swoosh logo is one of the most identified logos across the world, giving them points high on brand image. The slogan "Just Do It" is one of the most well associated slogans across brands, giving them an edge over others. The moment customers start remembering these minute details about your brand is when the realization happens that they have started associating themselves with the brand on a personal level. And then coming back to MDH masala, for example, I really admire this example because you see how to differentiate a masala. At least I would not be able to do it when I am eating something basically, because I do not know, how one can distinguish a flavor from flavor of aroma of one kind of a masala from the other kind of a masala. I just will not be able to do it because probably I do not know how to cook well. But you see, many who know how to cook well, I am not sure if they will be able to do that, but that is what these organizations they have done, and that is precisely what we are talking of. Customers start remembering these minute details. Nike's association with Michael Jordan, the basketball legend, led to its uber positive branding and hence greater brand knowledge. And same happened with MDH masala as well. They had a very strong brand icon. Nike's innovative way of collaborations with celebrities led to greater brand identity and hence a better hold on brand knowledge by its customers. And several other products you may remember of at this particular moment. Now, I will be taking you towards brand positioning. Brand positioning is the act of designing the company's offer and image so that it occupies a distinct and valued place in the target customer's minds. You see, what an image is, we have talked about with reference to how a customer thinks of a particular kind of a brand. Now, here we are taking things from this side, that is marketer's side, how a marketer understanding the process of an image being created actually does that. So, how he creates the position, and that is what brand positioning is all about. You see, finding the proper location in the minds of the consumer or market segment, MDH masale, Everest chana masala, Degi mirch, Catch salt, Trust sugar, Nike shoes, BMW or any other, and why not Maruti Suzuki. You see, this allows consumers to think about a product or service in the right perspective, and you may take several other names and you would realize that, and then you may think in terms of cricketers, you may think in terms of actors, you may think in terms of places, you may think in terms of apparels and so on. You see, Lifebuoy occupies the hygiene slot other than several other things. And we talked about Lux earlier, we talked about several detergents as well, Rin, Surf, Tide hai to white hai, Gillette and so on. Mysore Sandal, the pure and natural fragrance slot. Medimix occupies a herbal slot, and they have definitely done a good job as far as positioning themselves with a particular kind of an orientation goes. Then I remember Sensodyne, for example. You see, they have also very specifically positioned themselves, and that is what precisely we are talking about here. How did they reach to that understanding is what we have to understand. For example, IKEA Furnitures, Godrej, Whirlpool, You take several names and you keep on elaborating that concept of how they have positioned themselves, and while doing that, recall the image which you carry about them, recall their awareness campaigns which they have done, recall the product which they have given to you, HP computers, Samsung and so on. And why not news service, for example, NDTV India or Aaj Tak or India Today, and even our national news and so on, Doordarshan News. So you can think in terms of these services as well, and you have a particular kind of a positioning about them. I have realized that, for example, my father, he loves to watch Doordarshan. He has a very specific positioning about the authenticity, the credibility, the source, the elaborate kind of a news they present. So that is how things are. The concept of brand positioning is also related to that of the brand value proposition. Again, we are reaching back to value, but here we are talking of brand value proposition. And remember, when we were talking about value, we were referring to equity and power, and here we are referring to value with a proposition perspective. So even though both terms refer to the market value created by the brand, they vary in scope. A brand's value proposition defines all benefits associated with a given brand, including the less important benefits as well. In contrast, a brand's positioning focuses largely on those brand benefits that define the most relevant and distinct aspect of the brand. Image has a context, proposition has everything, as simple as that. If I say, let us say a chocolate milk, let us say Bonvita. So it may have a particular image in the mind of a girl, but then value proposition of Bonvita may have several elements which might not be even known to the girl who is fond of Bonvita, for example. Brand's positioning is identifying the reference point against which target customers will evaluate the benefits of the brand. And again, we are coming up with the target customer perspective. You see, ultimately the power comes from the target customers, people who are related to our product or people whom we are targeting. For example, Camlin is a known brand, but target customers are specific. Camlin colors are known brands, target customers are specific. Faber-Castell, for example, or Lego toys. All of us know Lego toys, but the point is the major age group which they are targeting is actually the point of concern. And when I would be talking about points of parity and points of differences, this would be a very important element, and I think you should remember this. So based on the choice of a reference point, a brand can be positioned using 4 different frames of references. One, and this is interesting, need based framing. Again, we are going towards some understanding which we developed during our product discussion. So need, category, and we all know about this. So again, we are coming back to, when we are talking of brand positioning, so is it need based framing associated with brand positioning, which actually directly links the brand to a particular customer need. Probably Walmart can be an example which talks about, which positions its brand on savings to appeal everyday low prices, save money, live better, and so on. A pricing element. Then category based framing defines the offering by relating it to an already established product category. For example, BMW's positioning as the ultimate driving machine defines its offerings relative to automobile category. Competitive framing and differential effect, differentiation has been the mainstay of our discussion all through. So competitive framing defines the offering by explicitly contrasting it to competitors' brands and highlighting those aspects of the offering that differentiate it from the competition. Apple defined the value proposition of its Mac computers relative to their competitors, and Samsung mobile phones, they try to differentiate. Vivo differentiates its mobile phones with the competitors, with their competition, and so on. People, organizations which or products which might not have done this, they might not be available in the market now. I would refrain from using the word failure, they were not so much acceptable. Product line framing defines a brand by comparing it to other brands in the company's product line. Rather than comparing its brand to the competition, a company pitches its own brands against one another. A brand positioning strategy often used by marketing leaders or market leaders seeking to nudge their customers to upgrade. Procter & Gamble positioned the Gillette Fusion brand as a superior option to its predecessor Gillette Mark III in order to highlight the differences between the two offerings, Surf, Surf Excel, Surf Excel Matic, and so on. There are several other examples, and there are several detergents for front loading machines and for top loading machines. They have gone into deeper researches not only on consumer behavior associated with this kind of a positioning, but they have gone into scientific researches associated with that as well. That is why they are trying to do that, and we can dwell further into the reasons by looking into their websites and so on. Identifying and establishing the brand positioning with the perspective of target market, nature of competition, points of parity, and points of difference. So, the first is, who am I? Origin of the brand, its parentage, corporate identity, etc. Then the other is, again, with points of parity perspective. You see, what am I? Shared associations with other brands. First, these are fundamental questions. You would have asked these questions about yourself also sometime. It's a lighter thing basically, but I have done that many a times, and then I have asked myself, who am I after all? And what am I doing here? Not at this moment, but what am I doing? For whom am I? Target market, demographic perspective, behavioral aspects, psychographic aspects, and so on. And why me? That is unique attributes to a brand. So, you see, this is a genuine kind of a thing, and remember, these questions would take you to again a fundamental thought that though brands can be represented as names, symbols, signs, logos, and so on, but brands, they have a personality of their own. And that is why these questions, which are very close to a human being, a personality, are relevant for a brand as well. And that is where our first discussion in this series, when I talked about Barbie as a personality, as a product, we are connecting to that at this moment when we are thinking in terms of, or we have started thinking in terms of brands as personas and personalities, or with reference to personas and personalities. Now, segmentation we all know, but here I would remind you of one thing, that segmentation is getting thinner day by day. There was a time, a decade back or so, wherein we had a very specific perspective about segmentation, wherein market segmentation says that it divides the market into, or it is about dividing the market into distinct groups of homogeneous consumers who have similar needs and consumer behavior. Right. But is it so simple now? When we are thinking in terms of the global landscape, and I mentioned about n is equal to 1 and r is equal to g perspective of Professor C.K. Prahlad as well. So there you see we talked about how to fulfill an individual's needs with larger resources to be sourced from all the sides, and how several customers from all over they come together in terms of being the targets of the same kinds of customers, same kinds of product, although those customers might not be so homogeneous a group actually. And we can think of mobile phones also. Mobile phones, although in high price segment, but might be purchased by people who perceivably might not have that kind of a purchasing capacity. So, but still they are willing to purchase those products and they are buying those products. So, that is where segmentation is getting thinner. Now, it involves identifying segmentation basis and criteria. Consumer segmentation basis is related to being behavioral, demographic, psychographic, geographic, etc. And then in business to business segmentation, the wider outlook is associated with nature of good and buying condition and then being demographic also. But here I want you to be reminded of what a target market is. It is a particular portion of the total population which is identified, that is targeted by the marketer or retailer to be the most likely to purchase its products or services. Now, just to remind you, few seconds ago I told you that you might not find so much of homogeneity as far as targets of several products in today's era goes. I am not saying that they cannot be put into one larger segment, they can be, but then it is segmentation perspective is getting thinner. So, let us focus our thought process more on target market as compared to segmentation. I am not saying that you delete it from your memory, but just focus on largely on target market when you think in terms of brand positioning, brand perspective. Because for many people brand might not be accessibility in terms of their ability to purchase that, but that definitely would be a part of their aspiration. And if it is the part of their aspiration, and as soon as they come to a range wherein they can spare their resources for that particular brand, they would definitely be the target of that brand. That precisely happens in cases of mobile phones, automotives, computers, eyeglasses, goggles, gold jewelry, diamond jewelry and so on. For example, a person who does not have that kind of a buying capacity and is marrying off his daughter, wants to gift her the best of the things, basically would go beyond that. So, that is what I am referring to here as far as the whole scenario of segmentation and target market goes. And then let us talk of nature of competition. You see, the choice of target customers, because when we are talking of target, we are talking of competition. The choice of target customers also defines a company's competitors whose brands aim to fulfill the same need of the same target customers, and here we are. You see, now we are moving more towards targets. Brand competition is defined based on the needs of a brand aims to fulfill, not merely based on the fact that the competitive brands share the same customers. For example, Tide and Samsung do not compete with one another even though they might target the same customers. Brand competition is not limited to the brands in the same product category. Brands can compete across product categories as long as they aim to fulfill the same need of the same target customers. And not to reiterate these, we have talked about categories and families and classes at length in our preceding discussions. Brand competition can be explicit and involve direct cross-brand comparisons, as in the case of McDonald's and Burger King, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, or it can be implicit without involving direct comparisons, as in the case of Domino's Pizza and Burger King, Coca-Cola and Fruity as well. And then there can be a distant kind of comparison also, which is not relevant at this moment to be discussed. And last point in this session, from where I would pick up my discussion in the next session, and will be taking you towards a pyramidal structure for developing our brand understanding further. So, before that, let us focus on these two elements of points of parity and points of difference. And you see, points of parity and points of difference, they are the aspects in terms of associations, because when we talk of competition, it is not only for the organization to look at the customer with the perspective of their competitors. It is from the side of the customer to look at a product with comparison in terms of parity and differences with regards to the options the customer might be having. And point of parity associations can be category related or benefit related. For example, Tanishq watches being sold as jewelry, Vaseline petroleum jelly sold as moisturizer, for example, sugar free positioned to sold for diabetes earlier, now also sold for weight control, health consciousness, etc. So, these are category related points of parity associations. And then benefit related, functional and emotional. We have talked about these elements at length. Examples can be in terms of functional, Dettol, Pepsodent, M-Seal, and emotional can be in terms of Synthol with reference to freshness, and especially Johnson & Johnson's in terms of caring. And then usage, occasion and time of use also is an element, and on the other side, price quality by usage, occasion and time of use can also be an element of discussion, wherein Listerine, Nescafe, Britannia, and on the other side Peter England, Big Bazaar, Nirma, wherein price quality by usage, occasion and time of use can be the context of discussion. A brand can break even in those areas where their competitors are trying to find an advantage and can achieve advantages in some other areas. The brand should be strong and perhaps unbeatable competition. Then comes in points of difference associations, and I will stop my discussion here by giving you some examples. Saffola, 98% fat free. So, that is where points of difference association comes in. Asian Paints, computerized shade cards, or today they have kiosks wherein you can go and you can customize the paint you would get or you want for yourself. Scotch Brite, and this I have talked about at length. Seat Tires, Maruti Service, remember that campaign? Two guys are wandering around in some Himalayan terrain and they say, can I get tea here? No. Can I get food here? No. Can I get place of stay here? No. Can we have Maruti service station here? Yes. Gillette double-edged blade. Now, all these are points of difference associations. I will leave you with these thoughts, with the aspects which I have just discussed with you, and with the perspective of how customer thinks about brands and how brands should be thinking in terms of how customer should think about them. Remember these last few words till I take you towards a pyramidal structure of understanding brands from salience to resonance. I will be coming back to you. Till then, goodbye.